Don't just rely on regulatory compliance, which is after the fact. Get ahead of it. Prevent the harms from arising, much like a medical model of prevention. And that applies equally to government and definitely the private sector. I want both of them covered.
I'm joined today by Ann Cavoukian. She's the former 3-term Information and Privacy Commissioner for the province of Ontario and the Executive Director of the Global Privacy and Security by Design Center. Welcome, Ann. It's really nice to talk to you again.
Pleasure to meet with you again, Jason.
Please, maybe you could tell me about education and research and the focus of the center.
There's so much concern these days with privacy. Trust is at an all-time low. There's such a trust deficit, and more people are very worried about their privacy. The public opinion polls for the last 2 years, Pew Internet Research, etc., have put concern for privacy in the 90 percentile. 90% very concerned about their privacy, 92% concerned about loss of control over their personal information. So when you put that all together, people want to know, what can they do? What can companies do? How can they protect their data? How can we try to minimize surveillance? So what the Privacy and Security by Design Center does is give people ways in which this can be done. How you can have both privacy and security, privacy and data utility, that we have to get rid of the data zero-sum game of either or, win-lose. That's so yesterday. We have to deliver multiple positive gains, and we can do it. So that's what I try to do through Privacy by Design and the work that I've done over the past 20 years.
That's fantastic. And one of the things that really intrigued me is that you work with organizations and align with kind of the top of their business, showing how they can make their businesses more effective, more profitable in other ways by including privacy by design. Could you maybe talk about maybe the certification programs and the ways in which you coach these organizations to bring on that?
Of course. And it's always funny, whenever I go in to meet with a board of directors or senior executives, before they know me or anything about privacy, they're all worried. I'm going to talk about privacy. They're worried about I'm going to shrink their business. And I always say, give me 10 minutes. Let me tell you what Privacy by Design is all about. If you don't want any part of it, I'll leave at that time. And after I present it, I want to advance their business interests and the privacy of their customers, for example. They love it. They didn't know that I would be presenting both, that the win-lose mindset is so strong that we have to counter that. And I talk to them about embedding privacy protective measures proactively into the design of your operations. Bake it into the code. Make it an essential piece of your design so people can't forget about it. It will always be present. They love it. And once they become certified for Privacy by Design, I've had so many calls. People tell me they're delighted with it because it has built trusted business relationships again with their customers when it was long gone. And they say, we also love it because it increases the quality, the accuracy of the information we have on our customers. Because one of the essentials of Privacy by Design is give people a right of access to their personal information. You, as a private sector entity or a government, may have custody and control of someone's personal information, but it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the data subject, the individual to whom it relates. And once you allow that access, companies have told me they love it because they say, look, we have thousands of pieces of information on customers. We don't know what's still accurate and what's not. Whereas when people gain access to their own information, they tell us right away, no, that was 2 years ago. Here's the current information. They correct it. They increase the quality. They love it. It's a total win-win.
It really is. And I remember the first time we talked, for me, my mind went straight to cryptocurrency, which unfortunately we're all talking about how much Bitcoin's worth. But I think that brushes aside the point that what this is about peer-to-peer and empowering the individuals to make decisions about what they're going to do with their money. When I think of the things that I don't like about my banks, it's the fact that they stand in my way. If I want to purchase something or if I want to send money to various countries for doing commerce, sometimes they'll say no, or they'll say, well, this seems suspicious, and they won't allow it, and the hassle falls on me as the individual. So I lose trust for those organizations because it's not like they're acting in my best interest, they're acting in their best interest. Is the model very similar for the security and privacy?
Absolutely. I mean, acting in the best interest of your customers will reflect very positively on yourself. You gain in that process. And the thing that I found, companies that have been certified for privacy by design, they say we love it because when we have to go back to our customers and ask for additional consent for additional uses that have arisen, we get it right away because trust has been built. We have this wonderful relationship. They know we're not going to do anything with their information without making them aware of it. We gain their consent. It's a total win-win. So we can definitely do this.
Yeah, I like the idea of empowering people, and it's it makes me want to engage with people if I have trust and I know why they're engaging with me. And I think that's why we repulse from just bulk advertisements, because there's nothing about it that's intended to be in it for me. It's not a pull, it's a push.
Right.
So I really like that nature. How easy or hard is it to implement? To me, it's essential. So it doesn't even matter if it's hard, but maybe talk to me about how much easier it is to implement or how perhaps difficult it might be to implement for organizations.
It depends on how far back you go, but I always tell companies that have been around for a long time, start now. Don't worry about what you did in the past. Start now on a go forward basis. Do it like this. Make sure you engage your customers in terms of the use and disclosure of their personal information, get their positive consent, get them engaged. And it works beautifully. For startups, it's much easier because they can just embed it into their operations directly. So there's nothing to worry about. It is ever so doable either way. And we can always find the right solution to make it move forward.
Do you find perhaps with governments or some organizations, they will toe on the old line of if there is nothing to hide, then you have
Oh,
nothing to fear? Does that still come up?
it drives me crazy. I always used to say that could have been the motto of the Stasi police in the Third Reich, because what's the problem? You got nothing to hide. Why can't the state, the police know everything about you? Because that's not what freedom is about. Privacy forms the foundation of our freedom. Freedom means you get to decide what you wish to disclose or not. You get to decide. That's what freedom is all about. That's what privacy is all about. So get rid of that hiding. It has nothing to do with hiding. It has to do with control, personal control on the part of the individual, the data subject, relating to the uses of their information. The Germans actually have a wonderful term for this called informational self-determination, that it should be the individual who determines the fate of his or her personal information. And it's no accident that Germany had to go through the horrors that they had to with the Stasi and everything. And when that ended, they said, never again will we allow the state to rob us of our personal information. And they have the strongest data protection laws and commissioners anywhere in the world.
It is interesting that, like I know for myself, even driving a car, it's the near misses or the accidents that teach you really where to focus. And clearly, that's a great example of that. When it comes to things like the general data protection regulation, was that a regulation that jumped the gun before there was organizations like yours to help people? Because it feels like there's been more a difficulty in implementing, and there wasn't really a strategy. There was just a demand for the privacy regulation itself. Is that true?
They wanted to consolidate the different statutes in the EU and strengthen a personal control on the part of data subjects. So they created this law. It's a very powerful law. And to my delight, they included my privacy by design in the law, as well as privacy as the default, which is the second of 7 foundational principles of privacy by design. So that's huge. And a number of people, as Information Age was quoted in saying that if you follow privacy by design, then you'll be compliant with the GDPR. I can assure you there's much more to the GDPR than privacy by design. But the point she was reflecting was that if you rise to the challenge and can meet the requirements of privacy by design, you already meet a number of the other requirements in the GDPR. And this is so important because everybody around the world globally wants to have what's called essential equivalence with the GDPR so that they can engage in trade and do business with the European countries. We used to have that in Canada. We used to have essential equivalence with the previous law. We no longer do. So our federal privacy commissioner has gone to the government and said, look, we need to upgrade our law. It's time It's dated from the early 2000s. We need to upgrade it. We need to add privacy by design into it because after all, they've done that in Europe and it was developed by a Canadian, Ann Cavoukian. So we got to get moving on this.
It really makes sense. It seems inevitable that this is going to be around the world. Obviously, there'll be certain regions and certain governments that will be very late to adopt it, or perhaps generationally late. But I'd like to think it's Canada, the United States, European, and as we grow, it's just inevitable. Is it inevitable, or is there something that I'm missing that is going to stop this in Canada and the United States and others?
I am hoping it is inevitable. That would appear to be the direction that things are taking. The only concern I have, and I'll express it, is COVID and the whole COVID passport movement, which is going global. And the problem with that, apart from the fact that your health information, which is the most sensitive information, is now being collected routinely, it is linked to geolocation data. So wherever you go, where it's collected, it will track your movements. And so now they're calling it, vaccine surveillance instead of vaccine passports. So we always have to remain vigilant. It should grow, the GDPR, et cetera, it should grow. And privacy by design is growing. It's been translated into 40 languages. It's followed all around the world. New laws have it in it. Like Brazil has a new privacy law. They've included privacy by design. So I want to remain optimistic, but we always have to have our eyes open.
Well, what I like about your approach is it doesn't assume that it falls 100% on government or even
No,
at all on government.
no. Now, I mean, I'm hoping the government will also do it because it's all about being proactive and having protective measures that can prevent the privacy harms from arising. Don't just rely on regulatory compliance, which is after the fact. Get ahead of it. Prevent the harms from arising, much like a medical model of prevention. And that applies equally to government and definitely the private sector. I want both of them covered.
I'm talking today to Ann Cavoukian, the Executive Director of the Global Privacy and Security by Design Center and former three-term Information and Privacy Commissioner for the province of Ontario. With freedom in general, we forget that freedom means that we have more individual responsibility. And we see this playing out in an odd way with vaccine hesitancy and these types of things. And in order to have increased individual responsibility, we need to take it upon ourselves to be educated and fact-based. And from what I can tell, once you identify the facts and why privacy is in your best interest in nearly every circumstance, then all of a sudden what you are doing makes obvious sense and we want to invest in it. Is the fact that we treasure this autonomy while forgetting the fact that we have a responsibility to educate ourselves in a fact-based way, getting in the way of things like privacy by design, or getting in the way of making good decisions with respect to vaccines and other things?
I don't know that it gets in the way. Of course, people always have to, you should be educated about a variety of things and learn about it and learn about it deeply. Don't just take the word of the media or the government, dig into it, find out what's going on. It's not that hard in the online world. So I think there is a requirement for individuals to be responsible. There's no question. But I don't think that stands in the way of autonomy or privacy. You can, once again, you can do both. You can have control, informational self-determination, personal control over the uses of your information, and learn about what uses are to your advantage. So you grant that control and you say, yes, I like that. I would like you to use my information for this purpose. It will be of benefit. So definitely they go hand in hand.
Yeah, I like that. And there are certain things, like we all have one of these devices in our pocket, and we assume that we're giving up a wee bit of privacy or a lot when we have that. But we can be proactive with those devices, our interactions online, and the locational awareness as we travel. Is privacy by design taking in all these facets, and do you have specific faceted for geolocation, specific things for communications? And maybe you could talk a little bit about how you address each of the facets of privacy.
It depends on what is important to you. Geolocation data is often useful if you lose your phone. or you are, my husband has my movements on his phone with my permission, of course. So it's very helpful because he knows where I am or how late I am or something like that. So you have to make the determination. Do you want to have these apps and various programs on your phone, your mobile device, for example? Some of them will serve your own needs. If you have kids, etc., you might want to track who's doing what. You'll have to make the individual decisions. Yes, they're there, but you can also remove them. You can render far greater privacy, but again, think it through. This is where the responsibility comes in, because some of these programs are of great advantage to you. As I just indicated, I use them. I don't wipe everything out because I don't want to. It's of benefit to me to be connected to my husband, for example, or my workplace or whatever. You make the decisions. And it's just, as you were pointing out in terms of responsibility, think it through. Take the time to think it through, plan it out, and decide what you want to capture and what you don't want captured.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think if you always put it in the context of your personal needs and make sure you're always just bringing it up to your personal needs, and anything beyond that is unnecessary and you need a way of finding it back.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now with Shinydocs, we understand a lot of organizations' data. We put it in a way that they can interrogate it, make decisions with it. I always use the words of saying, we don't provide privacy and security. We get you to the start line so that you can do privacy and security as part of your organization. And it feels to me like privacy and security by design center goes a little bit further than that. But is that similar to the way that you think of it for organizations and individuals?
The only problem I have with that is if you leave it to a company, an organization, to take it to the next level and provide strong privacy and security. Companies are busy, they're doing things, they may think that they just got your access to you, so they think it's built in or something. I always say never assume anything in terms of privacy and security. That's why I want privacy to be the default setting. When privacy is the default, what it means is to the individual, the data subject, the customer, the citizen, you don't have to worry about privacy. It is embedded automatically in all our systems. You don't have to ask for privacy. We give it to you automatically. That is my preference because everybody's busy running around. They don't have time to check everything out and sign up for it. But I can assure you, just about everybody wants it.
Yeah, and it seems to me more like than an ongoing service and program than it is like a project. It's not like you do a project and now we're secure. It has to be an ongoing program in your organization.
Beautifully put. This must continue over time. Things will change that may modify whatever you're doing, your settings, etc. It's a work in progress. And I always say it's like a chess game. It's like point, counterpoint, because surveillance grows and your privacy is diminished and you can upgrade your privacy standards and measures, etc. So it is always ongoing.
That's fantastic. Well, thanks a lot, Ann. It was really great talking to you today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And just let me remind people, privacy forms the foundation of our freedom. If you value free and open societies, you value privacy. Let's make sure we preserve it now and well into the future.